Okay, we're holding on Daf test right on the top, 109. Hashem, the terrible learn Torah every day. In the schus of our learning, we should have base in Migdash immediately. Learning the Nishmas of called the Basbarach Binyamin. And the channels have been seeing. Also, for Shlema for Avin David Sarah. And Dai gets Eliezer and Faggot Sephara. Okay. To order the Baba Basras. The Baba Basras for a week. In a week, we need a little over a week, 10 days. Huh? Yeah. Okay. It says like this: if someone leases a field, Rashi says it's dealing with a lease. Someone leases his field from his friend, but just for a few years. What's a few years? Anything under 7 years. It's considered a few years. So short-term lease, right? You can't plant flax over there because flax would weaken the strength of the soil of the land for 7 years. So by the time you get out of it, you're going to end up leaving leaving a mess. You're leaving a weak property when you leave. So, you also don't get to take the beams that you get from a sycamore tree. That takes probably 7 years to grow, and you're not even there for 7 years. You can't just start cutting down stuff that you're not even going to be able to replenish. Let's say he takes the field for 7 years. So then the first year you want, you can take you can plant flax in the first year because by 7 years it would already replenish. And you can also take the beams from the sycamore tree because by 7 years it will have grown back. Okay. Comes along the Gemara and says, Amar Abaya says, I know we can't cut down the sycamore tree beams, but the fact is that while he's there for 6 years, let's say he leased it for 6 years, so he doesn't get to take the wood from the sycamore tree. Why is that? Because it takes 7 years for it to grow. Your short-term lease, we don't give you that sort of product. Unless you're there for long enough for it to replenish, that's not considered your product. So Baya says that we don't let him take the beams from the sycamore tree, but we should still give him the improvements, the enhancement of the tree, the value, the increase of value of the tree while he was there, that he still should be able to take. Yeah, the tree grew wider, grew taller, so it's worth more. You should be able to take that. Rabbi says, Rabbi says, no, he doesn't get the enhancements either. If he doesn't get the tree, he doesn't get the enhancement. He doesn't get any, think of an example of what this would be similar to.
I mean, what would he get?
If you lease
how can you extract?
Well, it's improved more if someone would want to buy those trees. It has a higher value. Yeah, if you let's say rent the property and the trees grow in it. Let's say you rent the property, house, whatever, the trees grow. Now the mango trees are full and the whatever trees they have over there, nice and big. So now when you leave, the lease is up. You tell the owner that, when I came, the trees were only worth $100. Now, if you want to sell these trees, they're worth $300. I want to deduct that from my. It says no. You rented the property; those trees were not yours. I'm not giving you any improvements from those trees.
At the same time, you can still sell produce.
Yeah, but apparently the produce of a sycamore tree, there is a fruit, but apparently it's not like something that's sold or eaten or something. It's just it's wood. Sycamore is for the wood.
I don't think the tenant has the right to chop down trees.
Right, right. So here also, he doesn't have the right to chop down the trees, but Abai is saying that you should still be able to take the improvements, even though you can't chop it down.
Improvement, meaning growth.
The growth. And you don't take the growth, you take the increased value of the growth. Yeah. Meisrei, the Gemara has a question. Someone leases a field from his friend, gives money lotzis, and the time comes for him to leave. Shamanlai, we evaluate for him. Well, what are we evaluating when he leaves?
How much
My love, how much damage? My love, Shamanlai b'shvach shikma. The Gemara assumes from this that exactly the proof that we're looking for. It's a kashan rava. You probably evaluate the improvement of the trees, of the sycamore trees, which Rava says you don't evaluate. The guy doesn't take it anyway. So it's a kashan Rava. It seems from this price that you do evaluate it. The Gemara says, no, you're not understanding it right. Shaman la yarka v'silka. We evaluate for him the vegetables and the silka beets, the beets. Okay. The Gemara says yarka v'silka. This is a little surprise. Naka v'nishka. Why do you have to evaluate it? Let him uproot it and take it. Remember, he's leasing the property. Let him take the vegetables. Don't evaluate the vegetables. He takes the vegetables. It's his vegetables. Well, the Gemara says, he's not taking them because it's not the market day yet. He needs to leave them in the attached to the ground until
right. They didn't have fridges.
And so he's leaving it there. So we're just going to evaluate what it's worth, but he's actually going to leave it there. Okay. It's a good point. Gemara says, okay, that's an answer. So we've answered for Rav. You see, the kashan Rav was we had no other explanation for the brisa other than the improvement of the sycamore tree. They said no, that's not a proof. We do have another explanation. What the evaluation was, we're evaluating the vegetables that you weren't taking. Tashma, another question on Rava. Someone leases a property. It comes to Shemitah year. Shamanly, we evaluate for him. Shvius mikamafkara. 1 second. What are we talking about over here? There's if the land doesn't return to its owner on Shemitah, that he returns on Yovel returns, not Shemitah. So it says, what are you telling me that when it comes Shemitah, that you have to evaluate? It must mean that you leased the property and now it becomes Yovel. So Shamanlai, we evaluate for him. 1 second. Yovel doesn't take away a lease, it takes away ownership, the purchase. So purchase it. The Tzmisa Samrachmana says that if someone would have bought a property and that would have remained his forever, comes along the Yovel and says, no, it's not his forever. When someone leases a property, it's not his forever anyway. The Yovel doesn't interfere with the lease.
So technically, the land would stay by the original Shevet, the family.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because the lease doesn't affect that. The lease is he's leasing the property, and the original owner still owns it.
But the leaser is not harvesting or really doing any upkeep to the land on the.
I think he is. Oh no, okay. Yeah. The Gemara's gonna mention that. Yonatan and the Gemara. Hold on.
When Yovel was in effect, they wouldn't really sell. They would do the fees up to the Yovel.
Yeah, well, the reason why they would do a lease up to the Yovel is because they can't really work the land on the Shemitah or the Yovel. Yovel is like a Shemitah year. So Yonatan is bringing up also. But that doesn't mean that you can't lease the land. See, you're living there. You can't lease the property for 20 years and then it will include the Yovel. You can lease it for however long you want. If you can't sell it, you can't change the inheritance of it. It always goes back on Yovel. But if you're leasing, you could lease for whatever. Yeah.
Like, if you could leave them, who will be buying TVs for 70 years, it's more or less like buying it. Or the least buy.
This is a financial answer or?
Yeah, this is a financial, getting financial advice from Shalom. It's better to lease than to buy.
The returns are bad.
Depends who you ask. Okay. Yeah, I hear. So the Gemara is saying, what do you mean it's going back because of a lease? The Yovel doesn't interfere with the lease. The Gemara adjusts this. The Gemara is really like making a lot of adjustments to this price. Started off saying that it's Shemitah, we switched it to Yovel, and now we're switching that it's not even a leaser. We're talking about a purchaser, someone that purchased the field from his friend, and it comes Yovel. So Shamanlai, now we have to evaluate. What are we evaluating? Maybe we evaluate the vegetables. That's the way we answered Susan. That's the way we answered the last bracket. You see, because we had a kasha and Rava. Rava says that when you don't get the wood, you also don't get the improvements of the wood. It seems over here when you're evaluating that he should get the improvements of the wood, of the sycamore tree. So we to resolve that question on Rava, we said that we're talking about that we evaluate the vegetables. So over here, what do you mean? Shamanlai biyarka v'silka, biyarka v'silka b'yevel efkeru. What do you mean? You can't evaluate the vegetables on Yovel. It's like Shemitah. It's ownerless. So what are you evaluating for? Must be ela lav shvach shikma. Must be that you're evaluating all the improvements that happened over all the time that you purchased this field. Now it's going back by Yovel. You improved the sycamore trees, so the original owner is now going to give you that improvement when he takes the field back.
Right. Will the Yovel year always be the year after the Shemitah year?
It will be. Yeah, that's was machlekes, but that's what. Yeah. No, the machlekes was if the Yovel is the first of the 7 years, or if is there a 50th year and then it starts 7? Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and someone else, or if it's 49, the Yovel is just number 1 of 7 years. Machlekes, I forget where. Yeah. So now we're left with a question on Rav. I'm sorry. No, there is a 50th.
Just
the question
is the first the next year.
When does this next 7 start? 51. That's one opinion. Yeah. Very good.
No, we don't do your. Back then.
So if we stopped here, would the halakha be that this kakir or kakira can only plant flax in the first year?
Yeah.
Okay.
If he leases it for 7 years, he can only plant flax in the first year.
Okay.
He can only take the produce of the sycamore tree also the first year, and then he has to let it grow after that.
Okay.
Now, where we're holding right now in the Gemara is with a question on Rava. It seems that even if he can't take the enhancement of the sycamore tree, even if he can't take the sycamore tree, it seems that he can still take the enhancement of the sycamore tree, as we see that if someone sells the field, when it goes back by Yovel, the person keeps those enhancements. So too, the leaser would also keep the enhancements of the sycamore tree, even though he can't take the actual tree itself.
So the sycamore tree is something that seems you can, I guess, cut off in pieces and it still lives?
Yeah, they would cut it down and it would grow back. Like the way they harvest wood, the lumber. Okay. This is a big business back in the day. I'm sure it still is. I just don't know about it. But all the Hasidic stories of the wealthy man that would chop down, would pick his trees, which trees he would take, and then he would put it down the Danube, right? And it would float down the river. So, I'm sorry.
He would always lose him.
Yeah, he would always lose. At least the stories that we get, he's always losing it. So, well, the stories that we get is that he loses it, and then a miracle happens, and the Rebbe and something. Okay, so Tergama Abaya Liba de Rava. Abaya it gives an answer for Rava, even though Abaya is the one that was just proven correct. But he says that he can't really prove me correct because Rava, I could answer Rava as well. I could, he's like switches teams here. So I can fix Rava, answer this. Why? Shani Hassam, when it came to the sale, and it returns by Yovel, Damakra, the pasuk says, "V'yatzim mimkar bayis," and it returns the sale of the house. The sale of the house returns. Mimkar chayzer, shvach ina chayzer. As the Torah says exactly what returns back by the Yovel, that it's only the sale returns, but the improvements don't return. So over there it's different. The Gemara says, "But benigmar minay." Maybe that should be a precedent. We should learn from there also to a lease, that when the lease is up, you only give back the land, but you should keep the improvements. Customs vinimalia, the Gemara says no. Over there, that was an actual sale. Yovel afkasa de malko, and when Yovel comes in, Yovel extracts from him whatever was the sale, and what wasn't the sale, which was the improvements, that he keeps. So over there, it's more like a gezeres akasav of what returns, and that would be different by a lease. So in other words, Abaya just explained that according to Rava, it's very possible. What do you see over there?
Today there's appraisers. One band back then.
Yeah.
They had appraisers.
Yeah.
I guess it was
It's called Shami.
Yeah. So what would come out now is that we have a teretz for Rava, that it's possible that you don't get the improvements, the enhancements of a sycamore tree. Okay. Rav Papa Kabel Aralas Basta. I didn't realize Rav Papa was had a business in hay. I remember someone had a beer business, and maybe that was Rav Huna had a beer business. Rav Yosef, I think, had a leather business. Anyway, Rav Papa got some land for a spasta. Spasta is hay for fodder. Karchu Batali. Some trees were growing there in his field that they wanted to use for hay. Kika Mistalek, when he was leaving the field, because he was leasing the field, this is Rav Papa Amar Lahu, he says to the owners, Havali Shvacha, I want the improvements of those trees, because they grew during my time of leasing it. Amle Rav Shisha Breder Avidi le Rav Papa. Shisha Breder Avidi says to Rav Papa Lamiata, Dikla Va'alem Hachinami Deboy Mashvachi. Let's say you would have leased a date palm grove orchard. I don't know. Would you have wanted the improvements of the growth of the trees when you left? That the trees grew also. So Malay says, "Hasam lavadai to the hachinachas." Over there, if I would have leased it, I would have been leasing it just to take the fruits. That's what I would have been interested in, not for the growth of the trees. But I know, in other words, your example is not a comparison, because I went there for everything that's going to grow over there. I wanted to grow fodder, and I grew trees. So I want whatever improvements there are. Come on, who's he going like? Abaya. Must mean that Rav Papa Paskin's like Abaya, that he wants to take the improvements of the sycamore trees. Well, usually we don't paskin like Abaya. Usually we paskin like Rava, right? Except in 6 places. Where it says, I feel the Temek Rava, really, Rav Papa could be following Rava. Awesome, let's leap Seda over there when the sycamore tree was growing in so there was no loss to the leaser. But Hacha Ikab Seda. But over here there's a loss because he was trying to plant fodder. And instead of planting fodder, they had these trees growing there. So in that space of where he could have been growing his hay, he had to suffer with these trees there, and he gets nothing from it. Amarlei. So he tells him back, my Pesadatika, what did I cause? What loss did I cause you? Yada das basta, that area of the hay. Shakal yada das basta vizil. Take that little bit amount of hay that you would have grown there. Take that and go. And let's call it a deal.
Those trees were there when he was.
Yeah.
So he knew that he wasn't gonna be able to use that area.
Well, actually, it doesn't say that those trees were there because they sprouted. Those trees sprouted, and then he left them. He wasn't cutting them down.
He couldn't take them out.
Is is this whole,
I'm sorry.
is this whole discussion referring to the land of Israel? To exclude,
I don't think so. Rav Papa wasn't in the land of Israel.
but is there Yovel outside of the land of Israel?
There was no Yovel now either. No, that
Yeah,
discussion.
but then there was a time that there was Yovel. Didn't it just apply in Israel?
Yeah.
And Shemitah
Yeah.
also just applied in Israel.
Right.
So it makes me wonder if this whole discussion is just about the land of Israel.
Well, what happened over there, what happened before why we got Yovel and Shemitahs was because we quoted a brisa that says that you evaluate. Now we had to explain what evaluate was, because according to Rava, there was really nothing to evaluate. You either took your produce or you didn't evaluate.
Yeah.
So we were explaining that brisa, which yes, that brisa was talking about the land of Israel. But we were explaining the brisa how it would fit with Rava's opinion that there's nothing to evaluate by Elisa.
So this is about
But
land
now we're back
outside
to
of
Elisa.
Israel. So this,
Yeah, now
so
we're
this
back
is really just about commercial relationships, not about the land itself.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So, what do you want? You want a little bit of fodder that you would have gotten? So take the fodder. Amalei, Anak Korkama Rishka Riboy. I would have grown in that spot where the trees are growing. I would have grown garden saffron, and the fact that I wasn't able to grow it there is a major loss. Well, Amalei, so I'll tell him back. Galasadaitach the Lemishkal Vistaluke Abdus. Shakal Korkama Rishka Vizil. You just told me that you weren't taking value, you were taking the actual item. That's what you just told me. Because you said you wanted to grow garden saffron. So you were going to take the garden saffron. Well, it turns out that instead you grew wood. So, okay, you want the value of the wood? Take the value of the wood, of that one tree or two trees or whatever, as if it's firewood, if it's apparently cheap. Take that value of the wood and then go. Now, yeah, I don't know how the business worked, but apparently what he was asking for was he wanted enhancements. And it's impossible. How can the enhancements be more than the value of the wood? What's the whole purpose of the tree? Is just for its fruit, for firewood, unless maybe when the tree grows big, you can use that wood for building, for construction. Maybe it's more expensive. The tree's small. When you just take that, then you just use it for firewood, for like twigs and stuff. So maybe the tree was small. You say, oh, you wanted it for this. Okay, so take it for firewood.
Maybe they consider the time.
And these are palm trees, right?
A lot more time.
It doesn't tell me what type of trees. He used an example of palm trees, but that it doesn't say what type of trees it was. What are tale? It doesn't say what tale are. Tale are trees.
The corn has palm trees.
1 second. There was in this conversation, told him, do you think if you would have planted palm trees, you would have wanted the improvements of palm trees? You know, for the date, if you came for the dates, but that doesn't mean that's what he was actually doing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Because a bigger tree takes a lot more time to grow than a smaller.
Right. Yeah, but if you grow the bigger tree for the same, and now we're telling him that you can take the wood, So doesn't it improve? If it improves, like every year you get more and more wood, and the wood is, let's say, I don't know, $1 a piece of wood. So every year you get another. We're telling, okay, so take the $2 that you were there, or whatever. But and what's he asking for? For the enhancement, which is how much? I guess $2, right? So why are we saying, okay, we're going to give him nothing? That's exactly what he's asking for. That's what I'm saying. There must have been that the enhancements must be much more than the wood, than if he just takes it now as firewood, because then he would grow it. I'm making this up. I didn't see this in the comment. Okay. Let's see. We're holding by Rav Bibi Bar Abaya. This is Abaya's son. Rav Bibi, or Bevi maybe. Kabal Arav Ahadale Mishnisa Kadch Beis Ardasa. He leased the property, and he made a fence around the property by making a mound, a dirt mound around the property. And on the dirt mound, some Zardasa, some what type of tree is that? It was a sword tree, sorb, with a B, a sorb tree. Okay, do they have a picture of it in there? No. He comes stalik when he's leaving the property because he leased it. Amalahu, give me the improvements of those trees. He's not taking the trees, but he wants the improvements. We've had this before, that the children of Eli were there was a curse on them that they won't live over 20 years. And yeah. But then, because of Torah and Ma'asim Tovim, they lived longer. But Abaya was a descendant of Eli, so was Rava. So was Rava.
Both.
Both, very good. So he lived 60 years. Very good. So, Rava, right? Right. It could be Rabba, not Rava. But anyway. Over here, he's telling Rabbi Barabaya, you say, oh, because you come from Eli, so that's why you say these cut down things. I guess it's like a you say comments that aren't good. That's one interpretation. There's other interpretations that it's the opposite. But I feel Rav Papa, you're telling me that you want the improvements. Even Rav Papa, Rav Papa was only saying that over there he wanted the improvements of the enhancements of the tree because he was able to plant fodder in that spot where the tree was going. But Hacham might say this, over here you planted it on top of a mound, and you would never plant any grain over there on this mound, so there's no loss. This is just part of the fence. You can't claim that though because of the fence now you had a loss. Okay, Reb Yosef Havaleyahu Shasla. Rabbi Yosef had someone that would plant, a planter, he would plant the vineyards. Shachiv, and he died. B'shavik Hamisha Chasnusa. He left 5 son-in-laws. Amar, he says, I used to only have to deal with 1 person. Now I have to deal with 5 people. Now it's not necessarily so that automatically the son-in-laws take over a lease, they take over this job, but he's considering it like that. It's a problem that too many cooks, each one relies on everyone else to add the salt or whatever. They mess everything up, and you have too many people. They don't split the jobs properly. And so everyone relies on everyone else to sort of like cleaning the table. So, nothing gets done. There's too many people. So Amar now it's going to be a problem. Amar lahu, ishaklisu shuvachaycho mastaltisu mutav. If you're willing just to take the improvements, then go. Then I'm happy. Vilai, but if you're not happy with that, I'm just going to get rid of you. I'm going to fire you. Even you're not going to get any improvements. Davrav Yehuda. If a planter dies, the inheritors just get removed from the field even without any improvements. Now, So he's willing to give them the improvements, but he wants them to leave. And if you're not willing to take that, then he's going to get rid of them anyway. Maider Rav Kana. Where was Rav Kana? The Amar Ipasidna Mistalikna B'lei Shvacha. Mistalka B'lei Shvacha. Rav Kana says, Rav Kana come up? Yeah. Amar Rav Yehuda Mistalka B'lei Shvacha. Rav Kana. I skipped the line. That's what happened. Okay. I skipped. Who Shasta? I'm sorry. The Gemara concludes that we have a lot of milsi. The Gemara says that even though he quoted him a halacha that you can get rid of him without the improvements, but that's not actually the halacha. That's what the Gemara says. Sorry? It has the halacha that it is like that, or it's not like that. So the Gemara is correct when it says there's a lot of milsi. Okay. Hu Shasla, there was a planter, Damalahu, that he said to them, he said to the owner, Mafsidina, if I mess up, if I cause you a loss, what's the base over here? Mistalakna Afsid. I'll leave and I'll take the loss. Is that how they translate it? If I cause you a loss, I'll leave and I'll accept the loss on myself. And I won't take a payment.
Yeah, I won't take from my credit. That's what
Yeah, I'll leave and I'll accept the loss. I'm Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, okay, if that was the arrangement, then mistalek b'lei shvacha. Then he leaves and he doesn't take any improvements, so he gets a loss. Rav Kana mistalek b'sachil shvacha. Rav Kana says that no, he leaves and he does take the improvements. He doesn't even though that was his arrangement. He says, I'm going to be so good that I'm not going to cause you a loss, and if you see any one little problem, I'm going to take all the responsibility. It's not. He actually gets the improvement. Rav Kana says, Rav Kana agrees. The Yomar ipasidna mistalak. If he actually made up all of that, see, I guess the case before was, I'm not going to take the improvement. I'm not going to take what you owed me from before. Now he's saying that I'm not going to take any improvements. If he actually made up that he's not going to take any improvements, then he doesn't get any improvements. Not sure what's the difference. When does Rav Kana, let me read in your thing, when Rav Kana agrees, when Rav Kana says, one second. If I cause you a loss, I will leave. The plant, no, Afsid is not part of the halacha. Afsid is what happened. Okay. Yeah. Go like this. Who shasla damlu imafsidim mistalakna? And then what? Okay. Then what happened was Afsid. What happened was he caused the loss. In such a case, he didn't say that I'm not going to take any. See, what happened was the only thing he said is that if I mess up, I'll leave. So now there's a machlekes Rav Yehuda and Rav Kana. Rav Yehuda says he leaves without any improvements. Rav Kana says he leaves, but he takes improvement. Now Rav Kana agrees that if he said that if I cause a loss, I won't take any improvements, then he doesn't take any improvements. Rav Kana says the case before was when he didn't say anything. He just said, I'll leave. And Rav Kana says you leave, but he gets paid. Now Rav Kana says that if he says I'll leave and not get paid, if he leaves and he doesn't get paid. That's Rav Kana. Rava says no. Asmachtahi. That's just a asmachta, which is, we call that like a gamble. And vasmachta like Kanya. And he never had intention for that to actually, the only reason why he said that was because he was sure that he wasn't going to cause a loss. But 1 second, how does this fit with what we learned in the Mishnah? That if the person says that if I leave the land fallow and I don't work it, I'll pay full price. And over there, he had to pay the full price. And that was also like a gamble. And over there, he had to pay. Rabbi saying over here, he doesn't have to pay. It says, Hasamai Daftin Mishalin. Over there, he actually caused the loss. So he has to pay for the loss because he left it fallow. Hacha, over here, my Dafsid, Minakinlay. It's true that he caused the loss. Okay, so we'll deduct the loss. But Vidach, the other part, there's improvements. Yavinanlay, we should still have to give him. Right? Over there, he actually didn't plant anything, so he caused the loss, so he has to pay for everything. But over here, you only spot the things that are negative. But the fact is, he did all the other work. Okay. Runya Shasla de Ravina Havi. Runya was a planter for Ravina, Afsid, and he caused the loss. So Salke, so they fired him. Asalakami de Rava comes to Rava. Amalei, Chazimar, my Kavadi, look at what they're doing to me. They're firing me. Amalei, Shaparavid. He tells him it's good that they fired you. Amalei, Halei History. But 1 second, he said they didn't warn me.
Job
I had a student of mine. He got married, he got a job, whatever. It's a regular yeshiva bacher, typical yeshiva bacher. He tells me that, do you realize that if I don't show up on Friday, they'll fire me? So I'm like, tell me chiddush. Like, of course they'll fire you. They'll fire you. Why are you surprised? They said, no, in yeshiva, I never came once on Friday. Every Thursday night we stayed up late. I never came to all my years in yeshiva. I never came. The first time I got a job, I didn't show up on Friday. The boss that tells me, you do this again, you're out. Okay.
Second chance.
All right.
In Publix. 0 to 0.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the lesson. So it's supposed to be, I guess. Amalei.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Could you describe briefly the word smakta lokanya?
Yeah. Yeah. Smachta means you're seimech. You're relying on something to happen. And so that's why you said that. You only said it because you were relying on something. Like when someone gambles or someone makes a bet, he says, I bet that this, so the reason why he said that was because he was sure that that was what was happening, which means that it was on a false premise, or even though it was something that could have happened later. But the reason why he agreed to that was because of whatever premise assumption he was thinking.
Mm-hmm. So it sort of doesn't count.
So it doesn't count, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So like Kanya, it's not an acquisition. That assumption is not an acquisition. They didn't warn me. They don't need to warn you. Like Jonathan said, it's in the job description. Rava it goes according to his reasoning. Rava says, Mikri Dardaki, school teacher. Shasla, a planter. Tavcha is a butcher. V'umna, and a doctor. And Safar Masa is a scribe, city scribe. Kulan, Kemushin, Dami, they're all pre-warned. You have to know that if you make a mistake, you're out. Right. The Umna is those days was a blood letter. Who's saying it's a mile? Oh, Rashi says it's a mile. Rashi, there's another Rashi that says that it's a blood letter. Okay. 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 Klala de Milsa. The rule with this is any loss that's irreversible Any damage that's irreversible is you're always warned, and they don't need a special warning. Don't mess up. What is it? Why with a teacher is it like that? Because if a teacher makes a mistake, then the students learn like that, and it's very hard to get rid of mistakes out of the mind. That's the Gemara Baba Basra that's coming up in a month. Okay. Lahu Shasla, there was a planter. Damar Lahu, he said to them, I like my money, my improvements. The Be'ina Lamesaklar de Israel, I want to move to Israel and I'm headed out. I want you to pay me. Also, Papa Bashmuel, he comes to Papa Bashmuel, Amalahu, Havali Shvachi, says, give him his payments. Amalei Rava says, Iu Ashbach, Aralai Ashbach. One second. He doesn't get all the payment, all the improvements. The land was what did the improvements. He doesn't get all the value. All the value here you're just going to give to this guy. What about the land? I didn't mean I wanted all the value. I want half the value. Apparently, that's how a planter. Sometimes people sell things. They take 15% or something, or whatever. So this guy is supposed to take 50%, 50% of the improvements because he's doing the planting. He's really setting it up. An aris, if he would be a sharecropper, then he would take either a quarter or a third, right? Over here, sometimes he could take half as well. But here the planter takes half and the aris would take less than that. He says, I only wanted half. Until now, while you were here, the rule was that the balabayas takes half and you take half. Fine. But but now that you're leaving, so if you take half, the balabayas is now going to need to hire a sharecropper. He's going to have to give him probably a third of his half. So 1 second. So let's say over here there were 6. It had the value of 6 coins. What he did, so 3 is supposed to go to the planter. 3 should go to the balabayas, and now the balabayas is going to have to hire someone who's going to have to give him a third of that. Balabayas is going to be left with 2. Right? It was 6, 3, and 3. What's he going to be left with? The planter was taking half, right? Amalei, he says back, Riba de Shvacha Kamina. I didn't mean that I was going to take a full half. I meant that I was going to take a quarter. Okay, so what would that be? 6. That would be a third, right? Yeah. It would be 1.5, right? So Ravashi Lameimar, Ravashi understood to say, Riva dehu danka. He says a quarter, which is really a 6. Now, what he means by a quarter is like this. Let's go further to explain this. In a place where the planter takes half and the aris takes a third. If a planter wants to leave, you give him the improvements, and he goes. So that there's no loss to the balabayas. The way we're going to have to do this is like this. What we're going to do is like this. We're going to take the aris into account, and we're going to take off that money right away. So if you put the aris in, the sharecropper, and the person, the improvements here were 6. So the aris takes 1/3. So a third of 6 is going to be 2, right? How much is left? There's 4. There's 4 that's left, right? Because there were 6 originally. So you take off 2 for the aris. Now we're going to give to the shasla, we're going to give him a quarter, which is 1 of the balabayas, what's remaining for the balabayas, right? I'm going to give him a quarter of that, which is really 1/6 of the whole thing. So when he said I only wanted a quarter, he didn't mean a quarter of the 6. He meant the quarter. He meant the quarter, which is a quarter of 4, which is 1/6 of 6, which is 1. 1 is 1/6, right? Of 6. So he says, if that's the way we're doing this, then excellent. I'll just try to get to the next to who whatever, to the goofer maybe. If we say that a quarter means a 6, then good. The quarter, which means that he takes 1 out of all 6, because it's a quarter of the 4, which is left for the balabais. But if we say that he takes a quarter, which is a quarter of all 6, how much is that? That's 1.5. Then then the balabayas, you see, what we'd like for is that the balabayas is left with 3. The balabayas should be left with half. The improvements were 6. We want the balabayas to be left with half. So what we did was we took the arises out, which was 2. We're left with 4, and we give 1 to the shasla that's on his way to Israel. Okay, that's what he says. He was asking for a quarter. But if you don't say that this is the pshat, and when he says he's asking for a quarter, he's not asking a quarter of what the balabayas gets. He's asking for a quarter of everything. Then that means he really wants 1.5. Because a quarter of 6 would be 1.5. Now, if he's getting 1.5, then the balabayas is losing 1/2. Now, a half is really a 12 of the whole thing. So he says, if that's the case, then he's losing a half of 6. The balabais would be losing a half of 6. Normally, if this guy wouldn't be leaving now, he would end up getting 3. Now he's getting 2.5. Amalei Ravacha Breder Rav Ravashi. Ravacha Breder Rav Yosef says to Ravashi, why doesn't the shasla, why doesn't the planter tell to the person, Anam mansa dilach habli larisa? Aunt, you, mansa dilach habli larisa, you give from your portion to the aris. Anam mansa dili my debina avidnabe, and my portion, I should be able to take. This is why you're mixing me in to what you need to pay for the aris. I want to be paid for my work. Okay, so Amar, he says back to him, Ravashi, Kimatas l'shchita schul and tov actually. When you get to Masechtas Vachim, I want you to come back and ask me questions. He says, I see you're a very smart guy. And you should be learning like deeper Masechtas. Okay. Gufa. Let's get to Hu Gavra. Let me go a little further. Yeah? Should we leave it here? You want to leave it at Gufa? Let's go. Let me go, get through this. Gufa. Amar Rav Ben Yumi Breder Rav Nechumi Ba'asra the Shakal Shafs Palga Varisa Tilsa. We quoted before Rav Ben Yumi, the son of Rav Nechumi, that he says that normally if the planter gets a half and the aris gets a third, so Hai Shasla the Bayis Taluke, if the planter wants to leave, we give him his improvements, and he goes, lifted balabaya, so that the owner shouldn't lose out. And we said, how much was that? We said that was a quarter, which was a 1/6 of the whole thing. Kupa Saba, if it was an old vine, so now they have to divide it. He's supposed to get half, so he gets half. Shot fanara, but let's say there was a loss over here, the river came and overflowed, and now there's wood that needs to be divided up. River, then he only gets a quarter of the wood. Okay, let's leave it right there. Have a good day, everyone.